story that's my own. I am not who you tell me I am. I design myself, I define myself. We all.
We're back with Dr. Antwanisha Alameen-Shavers, an Africana Studies professor at Temple University, and vocalist and social worker Vanessa Ingram, who are here to share their personal experience with colorism. So thank you, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Okay, my question for both of you is, what was your first experience that you remember when you realized that the color of your skin mattered?
When I was in high school, at least high school or even junior high, I realized being light-skinned had a sort of advantage because as it relates to attracting the opposite sex. So I knew like, oh, you know, being lighter, you know, you get more attention, you know, more boys are after you. And so definitely by high school, I realized there was some sort of advantage, but I don't think that I realized that it was a real like privilege that came with it as it relates to being out in the world, like, you know, getting a job easier or not being seen as a threat as compared to dark-skinned women or whatever. I didn't realize that, but definitely in high school, understanding that the lighter-skinned women receive more attention.
For me, I would have to say it was a little earlier on. It had to be, I want to say maybe 7 or 8. It was grade school. I didn't really understand why I got teased a lot. That was plain and simple. I mean, we all had bad teeth and bad hair. You know, we were kids, so I didn't understand like what made my bad teeth and my bad hair worse than another kid's. But it was more evident for me when I got into like later 6th, 7th grade. It was definitely complexion. I was like predominantly darker than the other dark-skinned children. So it was a lot earlier for me.
And would you say, this question is for both of you, would you say that experience affected the way you interacted with different complected black people?
For me, no. I mean, I think that there was a diverse group of colors among black women and black men in high school, and that didn't affect me. It didn't make me treat anyone differently than myself, my group of friends. You know, usually sometimes you hear people say, oh, you know, I hung out with all light-skinned women, I hung out with all dark-skinned women. Like, well, my group was very diverse. You know, we all had different, you know, colors, and actually I was probably like the only light-skinned girl in my group. So, but I think that it was a level of consciousness that I had from my father that kind of just put like, you know, he just put certain things in my ear. You know, he challenged the idea. He told me one time, you know, if you are with a black man and he's dark-skinned, and he says that I only date light-skinned women, run, don't deal with him. You know, and it was like, why? You know, really trying to think about that. I'm young, I'm 15, trying to understand that, but I understood that, well, I guess it's some sort of self-hatred that's happening, so I can't deal with that. So I was conscious at a level. You know?
I like that. Yeah.
In terms of interactions, it did affect my interactions. Because all the other kids that were causing the torment were lighter than me, so I identified them as that. So when I would talk to my mom and piggyback, my mom was a big supporter. She was always the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, and she definitely instilled a lot of like encouraging black woman mantras in me. But I identified the other children as fair skin, light skin. They got titles early on in life from me because, you know, I was always dark skinned, so okay, you're light skinned, you're fair, you're caramel, you're brown. So they got descriptors early on. I wouldn't, in terms of interaction, I think that set the tone for how we would interact moving forward.
I agree. I think just from my own personal experience, I think I felt more of the shade discrimination in my family more so than in school or with other people, because I don't know, my dad's side of the family is really fair skinned and they definitely know about it. I always felt like they were like, oh, that's the dark one. And my sister's lighter than me, so I always felt that it was there. I don't think I just made it up. I think it really was there. A lot of times you say this is how you felt, but it came from these stereotypes come from truth. Right. So, and I don't even think they knew that they were doing it. I don't think they were intentional in doing it, but it was something that was just like, oh, she's so cute. So, you know, but.
Okay, for me, I realized like very young, probably like 3, because I think I was 4, because everybody in my family is light in my household, my mom, my dad, my sister, and like I would tell my mom like, oh no, like you're just saying I'm pretty because I'm dark, and she's like, do you really think that? So and I'm like, yes, so she's showing me all types of like African women models, Naomi Campbell, like she's beautiful. You don't see that, and I like really was like brainwashed. Like no, I don't see that. So then, like by the time I was 4, she had my younger sister, and she was like my complexion. She was so beautiful to me. I'm like, she looks like me, even though my sister looks like me as well. She's just lighter. So you know, I definitely couldn't see it. And she would like hold her arm next to mine. And like, do you really think that your arm is black? And I'm like, yeah, like the color of black was like my arm to me.
Like black.
Yeah, like the color black. So yeah, it took a lot. It took a lot of like, you know, but I'm glad that she did.
Also, as a light-skinned woman, I did feel, particularly in high school, that I had, it'd probably be on in college, you know, going to parties and stuff like that, but I felt that I had to prove myself. And I felt that I was going to be a target of some type of bullying or somebody trying to pump me simply because I was light-skinned. So I felt that I overcompensated with people just to make a point, like, you're not going to punk me because lightness is usually associated with weakness. And so, and you know, I didn't, my family, we not no punks, so I just wanted to kind of let that be known, but it was over the top. Like, would I have acted that way if it wasn't these stigmas placed on light-skinned women or dark-skinned women? So it was always like me, you know, if I get into into a conversation with someone who was dark-skinned, you know, I had to go over the top. You know, just like, you ain't over, you know, it's like outrageous. So I know that's something that I did experience with on the other side of it.
So, my next question is about your dating preferences. Do you think that race and colorism comes into play when you're selecting your mate, or did it over the years? Did it change?
Okay, as it relates to like men?
Men, what you look for.
Well, I've always had a preference for dark-skinned men. And then I tried to like dissect that. Is that because of society? I don't know. I mean, I just find them very attractive. But I find light-skinned men attractive. But because I've dated light-skinned men, but I think that my eye just always went towards the darker-skinned men. My husband, he's brown to dark-skinned. He's not necessarily dark-skinned. So I don't know. You know, I think about like, you know, as a professor, I'm like, am I, you know, so I want to analyze everything. Am I going over this because they have put the dark-skinned black man on this pedestal and, you know, he's aggressive, he's strong and all these things, and, you know, supposedly manhood has to be attached to that, and am I now seeking that? Or do I just like dark-skinned men? You know, it's really hard. But I would say that nothing is out of a vacuum. I think that everything has some type of impact on you, you know, whether you know it or not. So, I mean, I have preferred dark-skinned men, and I think that maybe colorism has had an impact on that. Who knows? I'm not sure.
Colorism has impacted all of that. Everything. When I was younger, it was definitely a light skin preference because that's all I thought that was in. Like, it was like early 90s. I was just like, you know, house party. Play was cute. You know, it was just like that. It definitely impacted when I was a kid because I was so dark skinned. It was just like I could never get the attention of a light skinned man at all. So it was just like that's what I wanted. That's what I craved for. So that's what I saw it. As I got older, it definitely is transitioned, and I think that's because I'm becoming more comfortable with myself and my complexion. Now it's definitely a dark skinned man. I mean, I wouldn't overlook a lighter skinned man, but now I'm like, oh yes, that is a black man. You know, so I transited into just the change has shifted.
Yeah, I feel the same way that she said. When I was younger, it was like whoever was light skinned. Like, where's it? Because that's just how, you know, that's what we felt rejected by. So I thought that that's what I wanted. But as I got older, I realized, like you said, and I always analyze myself too. Like, no, I think I really like brown guys.
When I was growing up, he had to be light skinned. And I mean, he had to be cute. He just had to be light skinned. But now, like, I mean, like educating myself and things like that, like I wanted, like I grew up and I wanted to date like a dark skinned guy, but like I don't know, maybe just opposites attract because my mate is always lighter. My boyfriend now, he's light skinned. I mean, so it just always works out that way.
Maybe love too.
Yeah, right. Could you briefly explain the historical truth behind this colorism that we face today?
Okay, well, colorism is a direct reflection or a direct result, of racism. Like, we have to understand that. When it came to Europeans coming here, English people coming here, and, you know, creating this land for themselves and conquering and raping and pillaging this land and enslaving Africans, they had to take this power for themselves and say that it's only for white people. And this is what they did. And so as a result, when they started raping black women, having relationships with black women, they created a class of lighter skinned slaves. And so they were almost like left with the decision: should we free these slaves? Should we, And some white enslavers, some of them decided to free their children, and this created a class of free black light-skinned people. Okay, but the large majority of enslaved Africans that were light-skinned, they were enslaved. They were, so don't get it twisted. They didn't free everybody. Right. But you had a class of people, so they almost served as a buffer. So during the institution of enslavement, you had everybody, most blacks were enslaved, but you had a few groups of free blacks that were, and a significant amount of them were light-skinned blacks. They, just like white people and just like maybe other groups, wanted to retain power. They understood that being lighter, being closer to white meant something, and they separated themselves from darker skinned blacks. And I'm saying this after the Civil War, after enslavement was over, they was like, okay, we've had this power, we're going to separate ourselves from the darker skinned Negro that is now free because we want to retain his power. And I think that was the foundation of the colorism that is happening in the black community. It really was a direct result of racism. And so if we continue this language, dark skin versus light skin, this she look better, she don't, you ugly, you are really continuing the legacy of racism and white supremacy.
I don't know if you have heard a Lil Wayne comment that has been, he said it a couple of years, allegedly said this a couple of years ago. And it was a lyric that he had in his song. What was the lyric?
Beautiful black woman, I bet that B-I-T-C-H looks better red.
So he was questioned by a model about this lyric that he said. And I quote, he said, I'm going to make it a little shorter, but my daughter is the first and last dark-skinned child I'm having. The rest of my baby mom's light-skinned. I even got an Asian baby mom.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know how you feel about that.
Which part?
Where do you start? But I mean, what is that showing the youth? And he has tons of people that look up to him, and a lot of impressionable young people.
And a dark-skinned daughter.
And a dark-skinned daughter. At the end of the day, that's still your child. So what is that telling her?
Right, exactly.
That is probably one of the biggest mistakes. I'm trying to make sure that I want to say this, but that he could possibly make in terms of parenting a child that's brown. Because, especially when it's getting more prominent, the division of colors of black women is getting more prominent, it's getting deeper. That's probably the biggest mistake you could make to discourage your brown child from being beautiful. I think there's a million things wrong with that statement, but I'm appalled. I'm appalled because I'm trying to dissect in which direction to go in. But in terms of, again, it's a generational issue for the kids. They don't know. There's not enough people telling them what is right on television, in music. They're not seeing enough positivity to change their minds. And when it's bad, everybody wants to be a rebel, so it looks good. So the kids are gravitating towards the wrong answers and ignorance. And in terms, prayers to Lil Wayne's daughter, because it's a journey. It's a very long journey to get back from feeling hated or hating yourself or not appreciating yourself to loving yourself. And if a parent can't do that, it's going to make the journey even longer.
And then we also have to understand that, that we are all brainwashed. And so, unfortunately, Lil Wayne is a product of this situation, or a product of racism. His thinking is really, he represents a mass of people who think like that. And there's other people saying similar things, whether it's just always having light-skinned women in the videos. And that's another conversation. But, you're uplifting a certain standard of beauty. And so it's not shocking that he thinks that way. I'm actually happy that he said it. So at least we can have a discussion about it and try to dissect what this is all about, but I agree with you, this idea that you're teaching, you're so comfortable with saying that, and really it's so disrespectful to your first baby's mother. It's disrespectful to your daughter, like your own mother. And it's like, if you hate the chocolateness that's on a woman, what does that say about how you feel about yourself? Like, I feel like we always kind of graze over that. Like, it's okay for a man to have the chocolate skin, to have the natural hair, but not for a woman. You know, you want to strip all that away from you. Want to strip the blackness away from us. And what is that about? Like, it really says something about self-hate. You're dislocated. You have issues. You really have some real issues. And unfortunately, he is, and others like him are educating the masses, educating our youth.
Right.
And it's really sad.
Right.
So thank you so much for being here, ladies. Really appreciate your comment.
Yes, love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to talk to the consulting producer on the latest installment of CNN's Black in America, Dr. Yaba Blay. So stay tuned. What is colorism?
I think simply put, colorism is a hierarchical system of perceptions and value based upon skin color. And not just skin color alone, but skin color insofar as it interacts and interfaces with hair texture, eye color, and other racialized phenotypical features.
Okay, can you remember the first time you realized that your skin color mattered?
Sure. I mean, I grew up in New Orleans. And if you know anything about the history of New Orleans is a place where skin color is at the forefront of our social interactions.
Is there a perception that lighter skin negates struggle? Like that people that have lighter skin have had an easier life than people with darker skin?
Sure, there's a perception of that. I mean, that's something that many of the contributors to the One Drop Project have talked about, and that was really part of the impetus for creating the project, is to give voice to what I call the other side of blackness, because unfortunately much of our understanding of blackness is connected to things negative. This idea that if we know that light skin has privilege, then like y'all don't have a voice. Like if we know that blackness and what it's meant to be black in this society has been about so-called struggle, then because you're light skinned, because we know how colorism works in this society, you automatically have privilege. So like you don't have a story to tell.
Can I ask you to talk a little bit about the One Drop Rule project?
Well, the One Drop Project is really it's an interesting combination between photography and narrative memoir. Like I said, it's this exploration into what I call the other side of blackness, and looking at the interconnected nuances of black racial identity and skin color politics. And so asking these questions of what is blackness and who is black and who gets to decide, and interestingly enough, the answers to those questions coming from people who you probably wouldn't identify as black on appearances. And so it's an interesting entry point because I don't have to think about my blackness. You know, it's a given. No one's questioning it, so no one's ever had to ask me to define it. So it's not something that I think about. But you've got people who are black and self-identify as black, but don't look black, whatever that means. And so they're constantly being asked to defend and define their blackness. And so they are well poised to lead us in that conversation in a particular way. And so that's the basic premise. Why are we privileging struggle to blackness? Blackness is so complicated and beautiful and nuanced to where struggle is not at the core necessarily of who we are. And for me, like, this process really speaks to this internalized negativity that we have with our own blackness. In as much as we sit here and we talk about black and proud, and I'm dark skinned and black and a berry, and all of this, which is surface rhetoric, when you have this idea that people who are lighter skinned don't want to be black or don't have to identify as black because they get to be something else, it says a lot about what you think about your own identity. That if you think people are willing to escape it, it says something about what you think about it yourself. And so for me, it's an interesting entry point, again, because for me, in as much as we're looking at them, I'm saying look at yourself. And think about what, because we're mirrors, and that's the thing that's hard for people to understand, is that we're mirrors of one another. So what do you see when you look in the mirror?
Right.
It's a painful sight.
Scary.
It's a
scary
painful
to have
sight.
to do that.
And it's a reality that we have to deal with.
So I had to bring this up because LaShante on Black in America.
Yes, my LaShante.
And there was a young woman, if you guys don't know, LaShante, a young little girl, LaShante, and she was talking to her mother about her skin color, and she didn't feel it was pretty. She wanted to look like her mother, who was like a shade lighter than her, maybe. But just to be a shade lighter, she wanted to be, lighter than what she was, because she didn't feel it was pretty. So, I mean, I saw an interview with you and you said that just touched you. I mean, I cried so hard watching her because I was her, and sometimes still am her. So I just wanted you to just expand on just that and all the LaShantes across the world.
Sure. I mean, that's part of my life works too, is to touch the younger sisters and for us to speak to our younger selves. I mean, I actually, I worked with CNN on the documentary, so the first time I saw the footage, I cried. The second time I saw the footage, I cried. At the pre-screening, I cried. At the preview, every single time I saw that, because LaShante is absolutely me. And so I ended up doing a video, personal message to her, writing a blog piece about it. Because LaShantes and all the LaShantes in the world need to see themselves in the media. They need to see themselves in the world. And I get it. A lot of us will say, oh, well, we shouldn't be relying upon the media to raise our children. And I get that. But like anybody who thinks that parents have enough power to control their children's minds are delusional. The media is big. It's huge. It matters. There's an impact. And she needs to see herself in the world. And when she doesn't, there's pain. And when the little boys and the little girls that she plays with don't see images that look like her, their exact pain upon her. And so, I immediately was like, somebody got to give me LaShante's number. Like, I need to talk to LaShante. I need to, LaShante needs to know. So I wasn't able to get in touch with her at the time.
Right now.
So I made a video for her, because my thing is like, look, and and see, the other thing is we don't give kids enough credit. Like, we have to be honest with them. And so my message to LaShante was like, I get it. I know it. It hurts. It's real. It'll get better. I didn't want to be like, those people are bad, forgive them, because those people are going to stay there. And that's the reality, sis. So like, it's going to happen in your life. How do we get you to still maintain a sense of self and a sense of pride? And so for me, the way I thought about it was, instead of like making false promises to an 8-year-old, it's to say, look at my picture when I was little. Went through the same thing. Look at me now. It's all good. It's going to get better. You might not feel it now, but it's going to get better. And I think...
Who do you believe? Whose truth do you trust? Question everything. Where do we go from here? What path am I supposed to choose? Give me a story that's my own. Not who you tell me I am. I design myself. I define myself. We all do what we have been told. Don't question stories on. Just took them for our own. Can't help but feel alone when built on mass deception. Can't choose my life's direction when I don't know where I come from. Teach me, find me, show me, guide me, inside, do right, no real, give light. Brainwashed and afraid.
To continue this conversation, tweet us at Mike_check_ or visit www.mikecheck12.com.